Alright, 3 more examples. Number 5, x squared minus 2x plus 1. So just like before, we need two numbers that multiply together to give you this number 1 and add together to give you negative 2. So there's only 2 ways to multiply to get positive 1, right? 1 times 1, or negative 1 times negative 1. Okay, so this one's going to turn out to be again, it's going to factor as 2 linear binomials, x plus or minus a number, x plus or minus a number. And in this case, we want multiply together to give you positive 1, add together to give you negative 2. So it's going to be 1 times 1 to get 1. In this case, they both have to be negative, right? Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. If you add negative 1 to negative 1, you get negative 2. So in this case, you get a little bit of a special case. X minus 1 times x minus 1 is the same thing as x minus 1 quantity squared. Alright, both of these are the same thing. Either is acceptable. Alright, number 6, moving on. Now, this is the first example where it has a common factor. Remember, always look for the greatest common factor first. We haven't seen any in this section yet of factoring the trinomials, but in this one I look at it, I should still be looking for that, and this one has a factor of 2, right? So we can see you factor the 2 out, and that should leave me with x squared plus 5x minus 6. Okay, and now I still have a trinomial in these parentheses. So if I can find 2 numbers that multiply together to give you negative 6 and add together to give you positive 5, I can go a step further. Okay, so we got to look out for these. If it factors further, then I'm going to get to multiply together to give you negative 6. Your choices would be 3 and 2, one of them's negative, or 6 and 1, one of them's negative. I think it's going to have to be 6 and 1 if the 1's negative, right? 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. 6 plus negative 1, positive 5. And that is my final answer. Don't forget to bring that 2 down. Factor out the 2, and then I go a step further. Okay. How about this one? The 2 numbers that I need to find, if I multiply them together, have to be negative 8. And if I add them together, they have to be negative 6. So I know it's probably going to be 2 and 4, right? To multiply to get 8, it's either 2 times 4 or 8 times 1. So I'm thinking 2 and 4. If I got to add 2 and 4 to get negative 6, so they'd both have to be negative, right? But if I multiply negative 2 times negative 4, I get positive 8, so that's not going to work. What about negative 2 times positive 4? They're not going to add together to give me negative 6, just like negative 4 and positive 2 also won't add together to give me negative 6. So this one, even though it seems like it's going to work, it doesn't. Okay, there's no way to factor this guy. There are not 2 numbers that multiply together to give you negative 8 and add together to give you negative 6, so we say prime. Okay, doesn't factor. Let's do one more, and then we'll be done with this video. Factor this, x squared minus x minus 20. Okay, just want to show you this one because it looks like there's no coefficient for the x term. Multiply together to give you negative 20, add together to give you what? Well, remember, there's a 1 here if we need. We can put a negative 1 there. Okay, so to get negative 20, if you want, you can do the chart. 20 times 1, that's not going to work. 10 times 2, that's not going to work. What else multiplies together to give you 20? What about 5 and 4? I think that'll work. Remember, one of these has to be negative in order to multiply together to give you negative 20. If I assign the negative with the 5, those are my 2 numbers. Okay, so those 2 multiply together to give me negative 20 and add together to give me negative 1. X minus 5 times x plus 4. Remember, you can also FOIL that out to make sure it works. You can check any one of these by FOILing. Okay, so that concludes this video. You got a lot of practice to do. It's a big topic in the next class as well, so we got to practice our factoring.